All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Best Self Blueprint, where, as you know, the mission of this podcast is to bring on people who present knowledge, experience, and ideas as to what it takes to live your dreams, pursue your passions, and move the dial towards becoming the best version of yourself. So, I am so excited to bring on this guest today. If you haven't noticed, I say I'm excited every time. That's because I'm excited to talk to every one of these people. So, this guest is someone who's overcome a lot of challenges to get where she is. After overcoming two separate eating disorders, she decided to become the person she wishes was there for her during her hardships. It's safe to say she's done what she set out to do, now helping over 30,000 people through her YouTube channel, in addition to those fortunate enough to work with her in person through personal training and group boot camps. She is the most energetic, authentic person I've ever met, and I am so excited for you all to meet her. So without further ado, the one of a kind Kat. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really excited to get into this because I think you have the perfect story of you really were dealing with something. It's not just a matter of opinion, it was a real problem, a real challenge that you had to overcome. So I want to start by just having you run through your journey of like what you overcame, how you overcame it, and how you transitioned from, your old lifestyle into who you are now with being into health and fitness.
So let me start when I was a wee little girl. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so starting out, let's just start where I got into fitness, and that was in college, and I really just wanted to lose weight. And unfortunately, it led me going to the extreme and wanting to lose a little bit too much weight. And then I developed anorexia during that time. I became obsessed with over exercising and just restricting calories and stuff because I felt like it was the only thing that I could control during that time because I was in a bad relationship. My parents were getting separated. College, I was just completely lost in. So I was lost. I was a lost little girl. Um, and then yeah, so I started out by doing like Jillian Michaels workouts, and then I took like a yoga class and a kickboxing class. And then in the kickboxing class, I fell so much in love with it. And I remember having this light bulb moment when I was just looking at the instructor and being like, oh my God, he has the best job ever. He gets to help people to see their greatest potentials, to see how strong they are. And I loved how tough he was on us too. He wasn't just like, oh, you'll do better. He was like, no, you got to put the work in. Let's go. I just like, it was like a no BS approach. And he like yelled at girls. And I'm like, that's just so cool, even though I have a very soft approach in my own. But I really took that with me. And then I went to Japan because I had to finish my semester by studying abroad. I just had to. And I realized I was not good at Japanese. But I did realize that I really wanted to be an instructor. And I actually taught the other exchange students a few fitness classes. And I'm like, oh, I just love this. So as soon as I got back, I got into doing a program, ACE, to get my certificate and my personal training certificate. Well, I can't talk certificate. And during this time, I still had anorexia. So that was something I hid for the longest time. I didn't want people to know that because, like, who wants to have an instructor who has an eating disorder and stuff? And at the time, I still didn't want to admit it. Um, so I became a trainer. I taught kickboxing classes, just like my instructor. It was so cool. And then I started to recover from anorexia because I got out of the relationship. I was done with college. I was starting to get my stride. But then I went on the other spectrum and developed binge eating disorder. And I feel like that's pretty common for people who have dieted for a long time or who have been through like anorexia where they restricted for so long. So I would just gorge on food at night and hide it. And no one again knew for the longest time. And that happened for 3 years. So it wasn't until probably like a few years ago that I opened up about it and I started talking about it and making vlogs about it and what helped me to stop binging. And now I haven't binged for like 2 years. And it's so great.
Yeah, congrats on getting out of that, because I know that's a really tough thing. First of all, just to admit, to
Yeah.
admit to somebody and actually like let someone know that you're dealing with that, because I feel like people just think there's all this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they think there's all this like shame tied to it, and it's such a bad thing, which again, health wise, it's not the best, but it's such a crucial step in the process where if you really feel like you're doing something that's harmful, get help, even if it's from someone. It doesn't have to be a family member or a friend or anything like that. Like, seek help from a professional who you've never known before and you'll never know again, just to really have someone to lean on.
Yeah.
So at what was the point at which you really made the decision to take on the task of getting out of that situation?
Oh man, there is a really emotional night where I had binged and I was on my bathroom floor just crying, like sobbing. And I called up my best friend and I'm like, I don't know what to do. I want to get over this. I shouldn't be going through this. And I put myself on that pedestal of being, the fitness trainer and stuff. And I just knew I could do better. Which and perfectionism doesn't help the eating disorder either. It makes you spiral even farther. But I talked to him and he's like, "No, I don't understand it, but I'm here for you." And I'm like, "Okay, like that's really nice and stuff." But it was that moment that I decided like I had enough and I had to make peace with food. I had to make peace with my body because I didn't want to look back years and years ahead and being like, I I wasted all that time just hating myself. Like that's so sad. We only have one life and one body that we know of. And so like why not take care of it? And it deserves so much more. And I know I'm capable. So it was then that I really was like it's time to put the work in. Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful. So how did you put the work in? What were those steps that you took to be at peace with your body, be at peace with your self-image and with who you are?
Oh, man, it's still like a roller coaster, but I would say like most days I'm very like I love my body. I really like treat it wonderful. But I had to number one make peace with food, and the steps that I took for that was like conquering my fear foods. So I would go out, like the one example that I have, and I even have a picture of being like so excited about this, but I was at the mall and I really wanted a cookie. And normally I would be like, no, like that's bad. That's a no go. That's a fear food. That's not going to help you towards your goals. How dare you? Even though I would binge on it later on. But I went up and I was like, I want that cookie. And then she gave it to me. And I was like, wow, it's one of those cookie sandwiches. And I ate it and I was so excited. And it was one of those things where I actually just allowed myself it. And it was no longer like, no, you can't have this. Um, so yeah, making peace with food. I allowed myself to order whatever I wanted at restaurants, which is, normally you're like, I have to get a salad. Like, no, you don't need a salad. I want a burger today. I'm done. I'm done with salads. But rather than that, it was also just making peace with my body at every stage. And in order to do that, I really had to treat it not only with like loving foods, but also loving thoughts and loving movement, and no longer doing just constant crazy workouts that I would just beat myself up and punish myself, and no longer giving myself these thoughts where I'm like, I'm not enough, I'm fat, my legs are huge, all that stuff. It adds up. And I don't think people realize how much power we have over our self perception, but also the decisions that we make based on what we say to ourselves. Because if we say, like, oh, I'm just not good enough, then we're going to make bad decisions. But if we start to say, like, I'm strong, I'm healthy, then it's like, yes, you're creating this identity for yourself, this new identity. And then you can make those decisions in order to become what you say you are. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack in there, but I'm going to do my best. All right. So
Absolutely.
the the biggest takeaway I got, or at least how to rebuttal to that, is we've both worked with people who they do the right things. They're going to the gym, they're eating the right foods, but there's that crucial aspect of negative thoughts. What do you say to clients or friends or people who reach out and say, hey, I'm really trying. I'm trying to think those positive thoughts, but I just keep getting dragged back into the deep end.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where it's like you can't really stop the negative thoughts, especially if it's such a habit. So I tell them, I'm like, okay, well, try imagining them as like clouds and they're just thoughts passing through, and you don't have to give them meaning or anything. You don't have to agree with them, but they're just there. And then after that, you can replace those thoughts with something that you actually want to put meaning into. So if you say, like, I'm fat, then I want you to follow up with two positive things that you like about yourself, whether it's like a physical appearance or if it's a personal quality, something like that. But yeah, we can't always control the thoughts, because there's sometimes where I think things where I'm like, yeah, that was not a very nice thing to think. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that's me. That doesn't mean I have to agree with it, but I can always follow up with a very nice thought and replace that.
Yeah, and I think another part of that as well is it really you thinking it or is it social conditioning thinking it? Because I
Yes.
think a lot of people they think, "Oh, I'm fat." But it's like, "No, you're not." Just because you don't have the washboard abs and like 30-inch biceps that you see on social media doesn't mean you're fat or you're out of shape. Now, I want to ask you a question about because there are a lot of people on the flip side of it who, if they have a client that says, all right, I feel like I'm overweight, I'm fat, you have the approach of obviously, yes, you need to put in the work to get yourself healthy from just an objective standpoint. But there are people who will teach clients, like, don't think positive. If you truly believe you're fat, like, acknowledge that thought and like lean into it as a driving force. What's kind of your take on that approach?
I think it's good to have reality checks, because I'm not going to say, like, if someone's actually fat to the point where they have fat where it's dangerous to their health, I think that's really important to accept and to realize. So yes, they can accept it, but I think still after that, it's good to think those positive thoughts to recreate their identity, because if they keep identifying as I'm the fat person, then they're going to keep making decisions because of that. So if they're like, well, I'm fat, so I'm just going to have the burger. I'm the fat one. Like, it doesn't matter. So just follow up with more positive thoughts after that. But yeah, I do think it is important to realize, like, you do need to make a change, because this is important for your health. This is important for your survival.
Yeah, I think random question. Do you know who Aubrey Marcus is? Have you heard that name before?
But I feel like if he ever watched this, I would be mad.
No,
He was
no. So he's the former CEO of the company On It.
okay.
And he was on a podcast doing an interview, and he has the perfect quote for what we're talking about. He says, "You need to have the mentality of you're perfect where you are, but you could be better. I love
Yes,
you where you are, but you could be better."
yes. I love that.
And I just think that's and I think that's what you're getting across is yeah, you have to acknowledge there are more steps to take in the journey, but that doesn't mean you can't love yourself for where you're at right now.
Yes,
So
exactly.
that's really powerful.
That's super important to realize, like, that's the whole self-love thing. It doesn't mean that you can't still love yourself. It means love yourself every step of the way, but realize that, yes, you can do better and you can reach your potential as you're just holding yourself back. Absolutely. Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's he's a smart man.
He's
If you
on
don't,
it.
yeah, he is. He knows what he's talking about. So how did going through your journey help you as a coach? Because that must have given you a lot of perspectives on negative body image and just negative thinking and all the things that, there are a lot of coaches who just don't have the perspective on that. So what kind
Yes.
of advantage does that give you now as a coach and someone who's again responsible for potentially reaching 30,000 people with every video?
Oh, that's so weird. It's definitely helped me through helping to understand where they're coming from. So rather than like them saying like I couldn't hit this goal, it's like, okay, but why? And can we get through this? And knowing that it's not, maybe it's not just them being like lazy, but maybe there's something like mentally that they need to get through in order to push. And I remember there was this one girl who was struggling with binging, and I'm like, oh my God, I know this. I've been there.
Yeah.
And so she just needed someone to talk to. And that's what I needed at the time too. And so I talked with her, And I just listened and I told her what I did. And I'm like, what's stopping you? And we had a just back and forth and stuff. And after that talk, her trainer came to me. He's like, what did you say? Because after that, she's just lost like 100 pounds after that. She just needed that one talk that was a light bulb moment. Sometimes that's all you need. But it is like personal training is like I feel like 30% fitness, 70% mental health because sometimes you're a psychologist. You are their therapist. And I think that's really important to know when you're going into the profession. Um,
Yeah, that's why I got my personal training certification, and after a couple months of working one-on-one with clients, I redefined my job description as an overpaid babysitter.
yeah, yeah.
And
It's
and
so
again, not to disrespect anybody who seeks help from a fitness professional, I think that's the perfect step. But as the fitness professional, I think you need to equip yourself with the tools of learning how to deal with the mind. And so I went out and I got a certification for mindfulness and meditation with an emphasis just on stress reduction, mindset. And that helps people, in my opinion, like you said, so much more than just telling them, what number of sets to do, reps to do, what exercises. I do think that's really important, and I think based on what goals you have, that's really helpful to get that from a professional. But if your mind's not right, that's where you see people go to the gym and they're just super amped the first 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden you feel like they dropped off the face of the earth.
Yep, it's that honeymoon phase where they're gun ho. No, absolutely. You got to equip them with the tools that they can use outside of your sessions because your sessions are like a 1/58th of their week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now to kind of continue, because like your whole life experience is so interesting to me. So
Really?
absolutely, yeah. So what was the point you decided to get into fitness? It got taken a little too far mentally. You got back to a place where you're good, you're at peace. Now, what made you decide to take that experience and journey and put it on the internet,
Oh
on
god.
YouTube?
Oh my god, I remember the first time I opened up about anorexia and I put a before and after picture. I was so nervous and I started crying because there were so many people like commenting and I'm like, "Oh my god, like this is something that actually might help other people." So, that was my intent though, is that like I wanted to show the journey. It's not just the end product. It's like, what is the end product? But people want to see the journey. And when you show that to them, then they know like the work that was put into it and they can relate more. And it's, it's not just like, oh yeah, she's just fit. It's like, no, she actually like went through stuff to get where she,
Yeah. I think that's why it's important for people who are very successful in an industry or just are looked upon as, oh, they were just blessed by God upon birth. No,
oh,
there are a lot of people who have gone through the trenches to get where they're at. And part of me having this podcast is bringing on people like yourself who may get looked at like, oh, well, she's always just been fit and she always like it's just a natural talent. It's like, no, you got to fight teeth and claws sometimes to get to the point where you're healthy mentally, physically, emotionally. And outside of that, you're using that health and that energy to have success in your career, have success in your relationships,
yes, no,
which, by the
absolutely.
way, I am very excited to talk to Justin.
Oh yeah, I'm excited for he's excited too. I want to be there. I want to be in the shadows, being like, "What's just
So,
saying?"
Justin is Kat's other half, and he is also an extremely successful, extremely intelligent health and fitness expert. So, had to drop that in there.
Yeah, drop it. You gotta lead into
Oh,
it.
absolutely. So, to kind of come from, so you started the process of transitioning your thoughts, experiences onto YouTube through not just like workout videos, but through testimonials and through just very open, candid conversations with your audience. Do you think that vulnerability and authenticity is what drew in such a big crowd?
I think so. I'm glad you think it's like a really big crowd because I think of it and I'm like, oh, I wish I had more subscribers. But then I really think about it and I'm like, I have authentically amazing, awesome subscribers that I have conversations with and that I can talk to, and I get to know their names and what workouts they like and their preferences and all that stuff. So it's just like a huge community of amazing people. So I definitely think that's helped a ton because when someone DMs me and stuff, I'm there. I will respond to them. If you look at my YouTube, I respond to almost every comment possible because I want to help.
Yeah, and I think people can pick up on that really quickly of like, is this person acting this way or saying these things to put on a show and put on a front? Or are they acting and saying the things they are because that's who they are and they are just genuinely invested in what they're putting out, whether it's YouTube, social media, whatever platform. I just think I call it the vibe. Like there's always just a vibe behind what people are doing.
That's a vibe.
It is. I love that word. It's a total like hippie word, but I absolutely love it.
Oh my god, yeah. People are using it now for like, what is it? Outfits and stuff. They're like, that's a vibe. I'm like, okay,
It,
that's good.
sure. Hey,
Budget,
this shirt is a
yeah,
vibe.
that is
So
a vibe.
real quick for the listeners, the reason I wore this shirt is not just because I decided in a cold winter Wisconsin day that this would be a good shirt to wear. It's because this is the most like bright, crazy shirt I have, and Kat is easily the most energetic, vibrant, crazy in a good way friend that I have. So I just figured this is a good time to pull it out.
We needed a match. It looks so good. It makes me feel warmer in this like cold weather.
Yeah, I do what I can. Bring the tropics to Wisconsin.
I love that.
All right. So we're going to get into a couple things that you mentioned to me earlier when we were talking about really what'll bring an impact to the people listening to this. The first one is I want you to explain your mentality behind people aren't victims of their situations. Because I feel like
Oh,
that's a really powerful statement, but I just want you to break it down from your perspective.
yes. Okay. So I just think of it as how people just don't realize how capable they are of learning any skill they want, of being as strong as they want, as awesome as they want. If they just had that beginner's mentality of knowing that they'll probably suck at first and realizing that they are awesome. If one person can do it, then why not that? Why not you? Why not you? And I think people forget it these days because it's just instant gratification right now, where you go on Instagram and you're stimulated and oh, you get what you want. You get to see pictures of cake. I love cake. That's great. Or you go on YouTube and you find the video exactly what you want to see. But people don't get that right away when they're learning a new skill. And so all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, I'm just not good enough. Blah, 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 blah. I feel bad about myself. Well, does that actually help? I think they need to take a step back and realize, like, ask themselves, does making myself a victim of the situation help me to get closer to my goals? Probably not. I don't think it ever has helped anyone in that case.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
I just want people to realize that they're actually really awesome and they can do whatever the heck they want. Just put the work in.
Yeah. Oh man. To me, the best part of that whole thing was being in the victim mentality has never actually helped someone achieve their goals. I I can't agree more aggressively with that statement. I love it. And then so the next one I wanted to ask you about because I thought this was hilarious how you described this, but I'm just going to get into it. You said people are like trees.
Yeah.
With no context, that makes no sense other than the fact that we're living things. But if you could explain what you mean by that, because the way you explain that it's a really powerful statement.
Yeah, but if we all think about, so I love going to the forest and I feel so calm there. And if you really just look around, you're like, we really are like trees, but we've forgotten that. And we're like trees because we're also perfectly unique, growing in all different ways. and we're also growing at different paces. But we're so caught up with comparing ourselves. And it's like, no, trees just grow. They just grow and they grow beautiful and they're happy in that way. But we've forgotten to be that way because we're so stuck in feeling the lack that we feel we have and feeling like we're just not good enough and comparing. Trees don't do that. They just grow.
Yeah. So, and I completely agree with everything you just said. And really, the way I think about it is if you're comparing yourself to someone for the sake of learning and education, great. But as soon as you attach the negative aspects of that, of judgment, envy, jealousy, a sense of lack, all of those things, it just becomes toxic. It goes from a tool to a weapon very quickly. And so if you are able to, yeah, look at someone who's had major success, learn from what they've done, but that doesn't mean you have to feel bad or feel like you're less than or feel like you're worse or anything like that. Just take it for what it is. You're at where you are in your journey. There's really not much you can do about that except for go in the direction you want to go and do it to the best of your ability.
Yes, absolutely. I like how you said it. It becomes like tool into a weapon. That was great. Yes, I
I got a
completely.
few quotes up my sleeve.
You do. You're like,
Yep.
oh,
Just slide it out.
you have like a fortune cookie and it says that.
I think it would be really fun to make like get a group of people together and just make like fortune cookie sayings and like throughout the year like you pull out one saying and read it and that's kind of your daily mantra.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that'd be
we might
cool.
have to get a group together and do that.
We should do that, or we should make like for like an advent calendar next year or something, kind of like like an advent calendar thing. And then day one is going to
Open
be,
the door.
yeah, that'd be cool.
I'm in. You heard it. We're going to do that. If anyone else wants to, it
Yeah,
is
we
not
should.
copyrighted by all means.
You like bleep this part out so it's
Yeah.
ours.
Yeah. Cut it. Cut it.
That's it.
All right. So, one of the other things I wanted to talk to you about, and I think I know your answer, and I think it's just this is who you are, but I still want to know, and I'll try to phrase it the right way. What do you think is your driving force behind your just constant, like high energy and high gratitude for I mean, you just have this childlike curiosity, passion, enthusiasm without being childish. I think that's a completely different
That's
thing, but you're
good.
childlike in your approach to learning, growing, having fun with what you're doing. What's the driving force behind that?
I'm pretty sure it came from my mom.
Really?
I think so because like my mom, if you met her, she's like 68 and she's just like Snow White and she's so happy all the time. And you're like, don't you want to like go out and like travel or something? She's like, no, I'm so happy at home. And then she's like, every time she's like, oh, I got so excited. We're like, really, mom? You got excited? And then I'm like, oh my God. And the more I get older, the more I see myself in her. I'm like, oh my God, that's where I got it from. And so I think it's that and just like her allowing me to grow up creative. She didn't hinder me from being creative. And like in high school, I would wear tutus and I had my hair dyed in freshman year, stuff like that. And I grew up playing video games and yeah, so like I think that's why, but I think I was really just born with my energy because she also said that. She's like, yeah, you kept me up until you were like 2 years old. So I think that is one of my purposes in life is to bring the energy.
You succeed in that. I will tell you that. Her nickname, so at one of the gyms I used to work at, I would be at the front desk and our nickname for her was the firecracker because she always came in just guns blazing, just the most passionate, loving welcome when she came in, which it's our job to do that. And she was the one who would come in and it was great.
I love that. I got so excited seeing you.
Yeah, it was a blast. And then I want to ask your opinion on this because you obviously I think it seems to come pretty natural just being authentically you and not being apologetic about that. What advice do you have for I think there's a lot of people, especially in their teens, 20s, who just seem to do what they think other people will find cool, find fashionable, find right.
Mm.
What's your uh, what's your advice to people who act not in accordance with their most true self to fit in with the masses?
Mm. Hmm. I'm thinking of my high school self. And like, I just never really cared. I think that's the thing. Why should we care? Because I've been taking a lot of time recently and thinking about what actually matters. And when you really look back at your days, what actually matters? Does it matter that you wore like a tutu? Like if it made you happy. And I think that's the most important thing is realizing like if something makes you happy and it doesn't hurt anyone, why not? Like what's stopping you? Do you want to look back and be like, "Oh, I wish I would have just like dressed silly, like dressed how I wanted to," kind of thing. And yeah, I feel like we should always strive to be the person that we look up to, like the person that we would wanna look up to. Like, my younger self would definitely have looked up to me now, and I think that's important, like and I wanna become the person that I wanna look up to, you know? So
Yeah, when I think of that, I think of I had a similar thought. This was a couple weeks ago at this point, but I said I do video journals every day where I just take out my phone, I talk about what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, what I'm going through, good, bad, in between. And one of my thoughts was, I feel like you are living in alignment if your 5-year-old self and your 95-year-old self would give you a high five with what you're doing with your life in the moment. So you as a little kid
yes,
and
yes,
you at the end of your life would be happy and fulfilled and proud of what you're doing with your time, your attention. And so I think a big part of that when you say why not, I think I completely agree with that where it's like why not go out and do something crazy? It, again, as long as it's not hurting someone or, you're not getting arrested or anything like that.
yeah.
But yeah, why not? Just go for it. And when I used to work at a retirement home and I would talk to those people and when I asked like, "Hey, what are some of your regrets?" I think every single one of them said, I wish I would have taken more chances. I wish I would have done more crazy things or gone on more adventures." And so I think that's something you can really take away from is just be yourself
Yeah,
because everyone else is already taken. So if you're doing anything but yourself, you're copying someone.
yeah.
And when you get to the end of your life, you're just going to be so much more fulfilled if you did lean into who you are.
Yes, absolutely. And you'll feel good and you won't feel regret. I don't want to feel regret. I think that's the biggest thing. And that's why I journal every day is that like I look back even on just like the day before and I'm like, did I do what is going to bring me towards my goals or did I waste time on like social media and not, you know, read and improve myself in some kind of way. I think that's really important to do like daily check-ins. And I like how you do video journal entries. I think that's really cool because you also get to see like yourself and what you looked like. You get to see your mannerisms and like you can really tell by body language what you're going through. I think that's really cool.
Oh, yeah. And I'm also still such a kid when it comes to just how in awe I am of the fact that, let's say I make a video right now and tomorrow I listen to it. I'm talking to myself in the future.
Yeah.
And then when
Yeah.
I'm listening to it, I'm listening to myself from the past. And so I think a lot of people lose that wonder and awe and they get used to it. But it's like, that's gnarly. The fact that you're time traveling basically to connect your thoughts throughout the days.
Yes, I'm so happy you brought that up because I was driving. People are gonna think I'm a stoner, but I'm not. I I was driving and I was thinking, I'm like, life really, like, I was talking to my mom once and I was like, I wish life were more magical, thinking about like Harry Potter. She's like, life is as magical as you want to make it. And that really hit me because, like, if you really take a look back and you look at like your phone, you're like, what does a hippo eat? Like, you could look it up and know it instantly. And I'm like, I think people have forgotten that this device is actually magic. Like, we can order food and it can come to us. Like, that's crazy. There's so much like magic out there right now that it's just perspective.
Oh man, you beat me to it by half a second. I think that's really what it comes down to is it's it it's a conscious effort and eventually it just becomes automatic, but it really is, especially at first, a conscious effort to seek out the magic and the passion and the things that just take you back. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that pivoted to that part
Yeah.
of the conversation.
Yeah. There's so much magic out there. And it's like a lot of it we can just like create in our heads too. Like, we can go on adventures and stuff. That's why I think LARPing's great. Like, I think, do you know what LARPing is?
Oh yeah. Oh
Okay.
yeah.
I just think that's great because it's like they're using their imagination, they're going out there and they're creating the scenario. And I think that's beautiful. They're creating like an adventure. So
Yeah, we did for one of my friend's birthdays this year. We went paintballing and we assumed it was just like any other day. But I guess this day they have six, I think, maps on this huge paintball field outdoors. And this day they were doing a special event where they integrated all six maps into one super map, if you will. And they did, I don't know if it was necessarily LARPing, but they did a real life version, like a real life reenactment of a video game. I don't know what
no.
the video game was. I don't really play video games, but so it was essentially there was like a village and then the woods and then the battleground. And so it was
What?
so fun just to get immersed in a different world for a couple hours.
Oh my God, were they dressed up?
Some people were, you could only get dressed up so much though, because you have the mask on, and a lot of people, this is funny. So a lot of people have like protective layers and stuff. I showed up in a t-shirt and shorts.
No. Oh my God, that
Oh
would burn
yeah.
me bad.
And yeah, so I'm trying to act all macho, of course. And so I'm like, oh, if I get hit, whatever, it doesn't hurt. As I've only gotten hit with a paintball gun maybe once before that in my life. And for part of this game, you could get bounties put out on people. And I guess I looked exactly like someone who had a bounty out on them. So we're walking along the woods and we were reassured if you're near the village, you're usually pretty safe. So we're walking just outside the village by the woods, and just 8 or 10 people who were waiting in the woods just let it fly at us. So I got popped in the first 3 minutes. I must have gotten hit 8 times.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I could
So
just see like boom, 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 boom.
yeah, I don't know what anyone's gonna learn from that. Stay away from the woods and paintball. But yeah, that was.
You're armed.
But again, it was one of those things. Yes, that moment was not the most fun, but that experience was amazing. Just to get to be a kid again and immerse yourself in a different world and doing it with friends was just so fun. So I completely agree. If you want a more magical, passionate, emotional, in a good way, life, you got to go out and get it. You got to go out and find it, rediscover that passion.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. That's what I do with my workouts too. It's just like I play around on the bars, I spin lightsabers, I do hula hooping now. It's just like, why not?
so this is a good segue into. I finished this with two questions, but before that, I want anyone who's getting into fitness or health or mindfulness, or anyone who just wants to again rediscover that passion and love for life, follow Kat on YouTube, on social media. She does such a good job of just having fun, staying true to herself, and enjoying every moment of every day. And if she has a moment that she really doesn't enjoy, I know we've talked about she tries to learn from it, grow from it. But Kat, where can people connect with you personally if they have questions about what we talked about, if they want to learn about spinning lightsabers, hula hooping, LARPing,
Yeah.
uh,
Oh,
anything? Where can they connect with you?
so you can find me on probably the best one I usually respond is Instagram. So at Cat Musni Fitness. So KATMUSNI and then fitness. Rather than that, you can always just find my vlogs, like mental health vlogs, where I talk about my eating disorders, how I got through it and stuff, and how maybe it can help you. And then home workout videos on my YouTube channel. Just look up my name. Same thing. And yeah, that's where you can find me.
All right. And that stuff will be in the show notes. So I'll put the name of her YouTube channel. I'll put the link or the title of her Instagram page, but definitely check it out. I've checked it out. I've looked at the workout videos. I've looked at the vlogs. I've looked at all of it. It's awesome. Great content. Um, all right.
All right. All right then.
We are at the finale. So
Oh,
the last two questions. I love this part.
oh
I love
man.
this part.
Oh
So the
god.
first one, what right now is the biggest obstacle between you and your best self?
Mm. Um, Definitely getting off social media so much. So I have took like steps towards this now. Just like a few days ago, I put a time limit on my Facebook and Instagram. And that way I'm not on it a lot and I can't like scroll. It's just like enough time to post and respond to comments kind of thing. Um, Yeah, I think that's what it is because like it takes away time where I could be reading and learning new things and learning new skills, just improving myself as a person. And yeah, I think that's probably the biggest obstacle.
That is a pretty big obstacle, and I feel like it's a total trap too. Where you're like, I'll just go on and look for a couple minutes. 45 minutes later, oh snap! So yeah, it's a total trap. I've fallen into it many times, more than I should.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not
We
alone in
all
that
have.
battle. And then
Yeah.
the last question, and this is probably my favorite part because obviously people can take from what we've spoken about, they can apply certain things we've mentioned, but this is where you get to address the audience directly. What is one challenge you have for the listeners that when applied or when they do it, it'll better their life?
Ooh. Oh, okay. We had talked about this before. So I think that everyone should take an hour in their day, if possible, or however much time they have, and go outside, connect with nature, not have your phone on, and not have music on or anything, and just take some time with yourself and to just listen to either the sounds around you. You don't have to technically meditate or anything, but I think just to be with yourself because in this day and age, we're so stimulated again by sounds and ads and all this stuff without even realizing it. Billboards, even though that's old school. But we kind of forget to connect with nature and with ourselves. And if we start doing that and we start listening to that, then we'll find more of like what we want to do. Because it's during those moments that I really am like, I'd really like to learn this skill. And that's how I found out I'm like, I'd really like to pick up hula hooping. What the heck? So I ordered a hula hoop when I got back, like stuff like that. Um, and it just leads you to really just get to know yourself and be your unique and best self. I think that's really important.
Become your best self. That is the perfect way to end this.
Oh dang, mic drop. I totally meant to do that.
Perfect. All right. So, for anyone who is interested in learning about getting over negative self image, negative talk, anyone who's interested in rekindling that passion for life, rekindling that curiosity, rediscovering that magic, anyone who's learning about fitness, health, mindfulness, check this girl out at her social media on YouTube. Kat, thank you so much for coming on here. I just want to acknowledge you for everything that you're doing for so many people. You shines such a light on what it means to be your true authentic self unapologetically, again, as long as you're not hurting people. And
Yeah.
I think this conversation just goes to show, I mean, we got so off track for a few minutes, but again, it's all about having that balance between doing what you need to do, staying in alignment with who you are, and having fun. And
Yeah.
so I just want to thank you for setting that example for everybody. I want to thank you for taking the time to share your journey, share your insights, share your knowledge. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for bringing me on. I'm really excited. I'm excited for you for like I just love that you're just taking the time to just learn from so many different people, but also sharing it with other people so they can learn too. So it just knowledge is the most important thing we can pass on. So I just think that what you're doing is wonderful.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, speaking of that, if you're listening to this and you feel that this is helpful to you, go ahead and subscribe, share this video with people you think it will help. And that's really the point of this podcast and bringing these people on is to get this information out to as many people as possible. So that way we can get people living their best life. So that is where we'll finish this one off. Kat, thank you so much. And we will see you all next time.
Bye, peoples.